Welcome back, Erik. We're back from a little break, and I'm excited to get back into your book. But before we do, I got one big question. Tell me about the whole idea of creating a book and the process you go through and how that has grown over the years.
Oh, wow. Big question. I guess the idea when you're going to present yourself to someone, you do so with your pictures. For me, I had several generations of portfolios. When I graduated, it was all fiber-based prints. I went and bought these velvet-looking notebooks, ripped out the paper, and it was coil-bound. And then I punched holes in my fiber prints, and I coiled it back up. And that's sort of where it started for me. And then when I was done assisting, I had the first professionally made one, leather-bound. So proud. It's kind of interesting, actually, when you graduate from school and all you have is like 20 pictures.
To show your education, yeah.
Yeah, this is it after 4 years.
I did it, here's my pictures.
Yeah, right? It's a little funny, but it's basically your vehicle to show what you're capable of. So it should, in some ways, reflect who you are, both in the presentation and in what you choose to show, obviously. This is actually edited by my agents, so it's a little different than what I've done in the past, where I've been really involved. But for this last one, I used to have 3 different books showing the different things I do. I had a fashion, lifestyle, and a more conceptual one. My agents felt strongly that it should be presented as Erik Almas as a whole rather than Erik Almas in parts. So this I lived with for a year.
And are the responses going well? I mean, it's a huge book. It's larger than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's just the same amount of volume, I think, as my old one, but the old one was actually a little bit bigger than this. When I was assisting, I asked this art buyer that worked with the guy I assisted, what my book should be like. And she said, come on over, have coffee, and we'll talk about it. So we did. And she said, in her experience, the clients always gravitated towards the biggest books. That's where they looked first, and that's what they were most likely to hire. So I thought, darn, I'm going to make a big portfolio. And that's where I ended up with this format. I made as big as my printer went at the time, which was 15 by 15 in a square format. So that's sort of reflected in this too. So yeah, that's it. I mean, people have all this idea, so you should only show 15 pictures, leave people, wanting to see more. I think you should be careful with diluting your work. So if you have 10 good pictures and 10 bad ones, show the 10 good ones. I feel, for me, there's different sides of my work that I want to show. And I feel I have such an aesthetic that belongs to a range of things. So I want to show that range without losing my tone to it. So that's why the volume of it. Yeah, I don't know. I do portfolio shows, and I start saying, you know what, you don't have to look at everything.
Right, right.
But most people do.
It's here if you want it, but digest it as you will.
Yeah.
Well, it's great. I mean, I've loved looking through it, and it really does, give me a sense of who you are as a photographer. Not only that, but if I was a client and I was coming to you, I would feel absolutely certain that you could reproduce this look and this feel, because you've done it so many times and so well so many times that I feel if I hire Erik Almas, I'm not going to get, the fluke. I'm not going to get something that's bad. I know that I'm going to get something great.
Yep. And I think that's a good point. If you have a portfolio, you don't want to show something that's not your strong suit, for instance, because people will expect the worst, and they say, what if I end up with this? But I really want this, some of your other pictures, but I see this as well. So you don't want to show work that you're not really proud of just to fill it in. So when you start out, I think a smaller, stronger body of work is probably better. And as your career grows, so can your portfolio.
Right, right. So include your great images, if you're first starting out, there'll be fewer of those, and if you've been doing it a lot longer, there'll be more of those.
Yeah.
So flipping through your portfolio, I come across these two portraits, and I love them. They're absolutely stunning, but they're a little bit different in tone from a lot of your other images. Can you tell me a little bit about the idea behind these and what you were going for?
Sure. So I had was a few amazing things that happened. It's about March 2010. I got a little bit slower, and it was kind of new for me. 2008, 2009 was sort of when the recession hit, and I worked straight through it, didn't really slow down. And so come 2010, I had a little bit of a slow spell, and I started asking myself, what do I want to do? And I actually had time to sit down and contemplate my own pictures a bit and how I could make it better and what I was seeking. And as I mentioned, you know, this connecting with people and bringing more emotion to it, I wanted to, instead of creating these big fashion stories, try to do something that was more about not just me, which it's been a lot of my work so far, is how I feel and my aesthetics and my tone and what I want to say. And I thought, you know what if I could bring the people I photograph closer to me and more into the pictures? Maybe the pictures will be even better. So it's not just me, but me and the person I'm photographing too. And we talked about emotion and all that, and it's not just my emotion, right? It's the people I photograph too. So to really connect with that and have that chemistry between photographer and subject, as we talked about over dinner last night, Richard Avedon's the master of that, right? So it's part of my own journey as a photographer to try to connect more with the people I'm photographing. So that's it's done for Genlux, and this is the art issue a year after the story we just talked
Very
about
cool.
with the film noir. And I thought, you know, this year I want to connect with who I'm photographing, and that will be my tribute to the art issue this time. So that was sort of the idea behind it, to be cast a girl that wasn't just beautiful but had some intrigue to her. I mean, it's a model, so it's not like I'm casting an old character,
Right.
but a model that I felt could maybe bring something more than just beauty to it. So that was it. We sat down, put up a few lights that I felt was appropriate, and it was us just really engaging in form and expressions, really.
You kind of had a moment of connection there, and
That's what I aspired to. I mean, it's. I mean, you be the judge if I succeeded, but that's a journey I'm on, right? I found in that time when I was slower, there's two things I want to bring to my pictures, more of. It's better storytelling, and a deeper connection with the person that I'm photographing. So, in the context of doing what I'm doing, those are the things I want to bring to my pictures.
yeah, and I think you've done an amazing job here. And it's nice to see something that's, you know, it is different from a lot of your book, but in the same way, it's still you. I mean, the tones are still, you know, treated very well, and you know, we want to have it. I mean, the highlights in here, what's the highest point is like 70% gray or something, huh?
Yeah, it's not sparkly.
No, not sparkly, but in that sense, I think it really works with what you were going for. So yeah, it's very nice to see these in your book as well, and it kind of speaks to what you were saying about you know, reaching out and trying to bring out more emotion from your subjects.
I think if you put this in between these pictures, for instance, that we just talked about, it could sort of fit. I mean, it's a contrast to some of the other exterior work, but it's an extension of what I do. I still feel it has my voice to it, even though it's different.
I would agree. I definitely agree. It doesn't look like you were trying to be someone else. It looks like you were still trying to be you, you know, but bring that new voice to it as well.
Thank you.
You know, there's a lot to be said for that too, and that's what we were talking about interesting earlier, is bringing that voice from inside. So let's continue to move on. I have a few more bookmarked here, and I mean, I could talk with hours about just about every one of these pieces. This piece I love. It's amazing, and this is one of those opportunities where I feel you kind of straddle that in a lot of your work. A lot of your images could be, and they're not, but they could be very boring and just not that good. But there's a real subtlety to them, and it seems like you take something that could be very boring and could be very simple and make it great. And it's a very subtle thing that I don't fully understand.
Thank you.
But, you know, we have a woman in a tent in a desert here, and, you know, 100 people could go out and shoot this, and I think 99 of them would come back and it would be totally boring. Just be like, okay. But you've managed to bring out something else in the photo. I don't know if you can talk about that at all.
Sure. I think the intangible quality, something that is what you're thinking of. Yeah, how do you make it interesting? For me, in this picture, it's not as much me as it is the help I get, I feel. It's just the styling. The stylist here has done an amazing job. The things that I said, so this came out of an editorial assignment. She's an archaeologist that wrote a book about the history of female archaeologists throughout history. So when I got sort of that note about her, I said, you know, I want to do something that speaks to that. So this is not really a desert, it's these amazing dunes next to a beach close to San Francisco. And I talked to the stylist and said, this is the story I want to tell. And I pulled some references about old archaeologists, yeah? So she was the one that brought the tent and the carpets and the bags and really brought the story together. So photography is really amazing that way, right? If you have a vision and you can describe that to stylists and hair and makeup people, they will get excited about collaborating with you, and they bring their talents to a project that is sort of yours, right? You get all that amazing help. Two things to this, besides that help, it's to choreograph color, which we talked about. And here it's all monochromatic, yeah? They even toned down the sky quite a bit to fit with this brown, deserty tone. So again, start with that and direct the stylist and tonality. We want this to feel brown and desert and what that emotional connection is to that. So I think that's what you're seeking maybe, or that's what you're asking about. A palette that feels like that thing that we think of when we think desert and archaeology, and then the styling of it. And of course, she looks great too.
She looks great, and her pose is striking. You know, this is definitely, they call it the Wonder Woman pose, right?
Is that what they call it?
I've heard it before, but, you know, and she's even got a little cape. No, but the pose is striking. Tell me about the pose, and also tell me about the composition of this photo, because I know that these are not by accident here. I know that none of these details are by accident. I mean, we see these beautiful leading lines, and it seems like composition comes very natural to you, or you spend a great deal of time thinking about it.
Great deal of time thinking about it.
Okay, that's better, because then you can explain it.
No, I mean, that's this DVD that I made has a whole chapter on composition, and I'm pretty passionate about it because I think it can be learned. The one big thing that you see all over the internet is the rule of thirds, and I want to debunk that myth right away. Just toss it out, don't use it ever. It's just wrong. What you should focus on is balance within the picture, and a way for the eye to get caught within that picture so it lingers there. If there's only one element in the photograph, your eye will go there and sort of leave it. Now if there's other elements that's tied up in sort of a symmetry of a triangle within the photograph, you could sort of trap the eye within it. And you look at here, which is the focal point, you follow the scarf and the motion of that, maybe come down here and back at these flowers and come back up, and you created this triangular shape. So I do that a lot in my pictures and try to sort of follow that. The master of it is Annie Leibovitz. When she shoots groups, they're all perfectly designed in triangles. It's quite extraordinary, actually. And you look at all these old painters, they were the masters of that. So if you want to learn something about composition, look at old master painters.
Paintings. Who are some of the names of some of the painters that you enjoy?
All the Dutch masters. I would start there. There's the Rembrandts and all those. I think for true sort of compositional tools, maybe Velasquez did amazing. Who else could I bring forth? Drawing a blank. don't have any painters for you.
Let's stick to photography.
I mean, there's so many painters, but I would start with Velázquez, maybe Rubens.
Okay.
Rubens is a big one too.
Perfect. Yeah, and I agree. I mean, that's, you know, like you said, if it is something that can be learned and you feel that it is, then you can study it. And so those are really good, almost like study guides.
And you shouldn't sort of, photography is a craft, and to think that you're going to just be good at it by snapping, it doesn't make sense. You got to study what came before you, the history of it, and it starts with paintings, really. You know, that was a representation of what was, and now we have a true representation of it, which is photography. With composites, it's untrued itself a bit, but
right.
Yeah. So you got to follow the visual history and heritage you have, right? And when these painters studied, they studied their masters and often repainted the same paintings as they did so they could learn from it, and then went on and did their own paintings, right? So you should draw from what people have done before you and learn from it, and be mindful of the techniques they used and implement that in your photography.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about, you know, there's not just the image itself, but there's everything that's behind the image, you know, and studying. You know, it's one thing to study how this was lit. It's one thing to study, you know, the colors, but I feel like it's a completely different thing to study, you know, the implications of her pose and the, you know, the idea that, you know, she's on the left half of the image looking towards the right, you know, kind of filling that visual space. This amount of negative space here, you know, this element to draw your eye down and then, you know, kind of coming back again through this. And I see it in your work a lot, and it's very intentional, and it's genius. I mean, not many people, I don't think, get far enough along in their career, or you know, there are all those steps that you can go through.
Yeah. For me, you know, when this picture derived from her, right? Who is she, and what story does she have? Her story came the archaeology part, but then she's an explorer. Then, right? What does sort of this heritage, which is hers, of female archaeologists, what's that? That was her history, and that's what she chose to write about. So for me, then, when I direct her, it's like, be proud, you know, be a part of that heritage, look forward into the future, and that kind of stuff. And then you don't want it to be too static, right? So I have right outside the frame, there's the stylist sort of flying the scarf to add a little sense of motion to it, so it doesn't become too static. And there's small things like that. Again, look at photographers before, you see what they've done. And I'm a big fan of looking at pictures and find out what within the pictures you see that you're drawn to. So if you like sort of this kind of pose, then say, next time I shoot someone, I'm going to use that kind of pose. Or if I like this stoic look, or if I like the motion to the scarf, be aware of that and use it next time you take pictures.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and one other thing that I love about this, you know, not only the pose and the scarf, is that I feel like everything in this image is necessary. In other words, if I were to crop this page away, you know, so we only had this, I don't think this image would work at all.
Yeah, I mean, just look into the future, looking somewhere, right? So you got to lend the viewer's eye some space to travel that way. If you crop closer, maybe it won't work as well.
Yeah.
So,
it makes sense, you know, and it's intentional. I think sometimes I myself, and I know a lot of other people, they'll crop an image almost arbitrarily. You know, it's just like, oh, crop this in. I want the subject to be a little bit bigger, but without thinking of the implications that has in the photo, in the image.
Again, that comes with your aesthetic, right? I think if you do something like this, you have a mood board on this wall. You will really quickly see the pictures you pull out, if they are cropped tight or if they're cropped wide, if they're vertical or if they're horizontal, you know, and that will reflect sort of who you are as a person and how you see. So if you look through this book, I mean, 90% of it is horizontal. It's this sort of movie format, which I'm drawn to, and I feel it's better to tell stories within that sort of frame. And again, what is she looking at? What's happening next? And who is she? And all those questions, right? So that's my aesthetic.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's continue to move on. I mean, these are all great. Okay, this image and this series, the Land Surveyor series. I want to talk about this a little bit from a more of a technical standpoint, if you're okay doing that.
Absolutely.
And I love the play of light. You know, here we have, you know, our bits of highlights, how the tent is, you know, kind of in the light, and then we have our shadows that kind of come across the landscape. Again, the highlight. What was the name of this rock here?
Shiprock.
Shiprock?
Yep.
Okay. And, you know, the light that's hitting the shiprock here, and then the sky as well, which I think fits very well. From a technical standpoint, tell me how much of this was like dodging and burning. The tent looks like it was maybe lit by a strobe, possibly. This looks like maybe it was done by the sun. Can you kind of talk me through this image?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's pretty much one frame, the background. The sky was there. You said it fit well, it's because it was there. It was one of those.
This was the sky?
This was the sky.
Wow.
And there's some behind the scenes footage there where you actually see a pan of the video of it. So it was there. It's one of those days where you show up and the sky is perfect, you know.
God was like, here, Erik, have this great photograph.
Exactly. So yes, I toned down the bottom a tiny bit, but you see this jagged edge here? It was just perfect how the sun sort of came in between some of these and cast this shaft of light down here. And you can kind of see how these shadows here mimic sort of these up here. So the sun set over here, and it was just a magic day. This is me shooting background plates though. I wanted to do this Land Surveyor series, and I was here on assignment for a job, and I told the producer I'm staying behind a couple of days. I'm going to shoot some landscapes on my own, and shot this background plate, and then added the tent and the guy after.
And yeah, the background. I mean, even the background by itself is incredible. Can you tell me about, you know, kind of the styling and everything that went into? I mean, this is not like a tripod that you get at Target or anything like that. How does all this come together for a photo like this?
So for me, again, it came out of that the time where I said I want to bring more storytelling elements to my pictures, and I want to connect more with the people I'm shooting. So I thought, how do I do that, right? And so I wanted to create a story of pictures instead of sort of only having the people look in camera for me to connect. I wanted to tell a broader story, so it became sort of a concept of pictures. So there's him flying in the air, and then there's close-ups where you sort of get that emotion of who this person is. So I wanted to find someone, a vehicle to exercise that and create some pictures that I felt made me a better photographer, really. And I thought about these Land Surveyors for a while, and I decided that I'm going to do a series of these Land Surveyors. And put them in the desert, put them in the snow, put them by the water, and shoot them in different sort of places. So it's a broader thing for me. I've only done 2 segments of this, and would like to do maybe a couple more. So that's the base of it, and then you start looking around then on the internet. Who are these Land Surveyors as people, and how do they dress? And that's really it. A lot of research, and you bring that to the stylist. And being in California, things like this is fairly easily accessible because of the film industry. So you call a prop house and say, this is some reference pictures, we want to do these Land Surveyors, and they send you this stuff. I mean, you rent it.
Right.
And then you cast
They say,
it.
oh, this is Erik Almas? Yeah, for free? Totally. What else do you want? I can come help on a shoot.
So the process for us is to put out the casting call online. Again, when you're in a metropolitan area, it's not that hard. In this case, it was actors, so you put that out. There's Model Mayhem from Modelers, and there's a lot of places for people to connect with each other to do projects like this. So cast this really, really great guy. So expressive. It was a lot of fun to photograph him, and got the tools together. And there's some behind the scenes online where you see us shooting these guys actually at an airport, just on asphalt, and then putting them in there.
As you're talking and I'm looking at this image, I'm actually seeing this as a reflection of you a little bit, and I'm wondering if that subconsciously might be why you were, you know, interested in shooting Land Surveyors, because you were here, you know, with your tripod, shooting this beautiful background, and you know, maybe this man is a reflection of yourself. You know, you are the Land Surveyor.
I mean, maybe. maybe.
Totally, maybe not.
I love Land Surveyors though. It's so you could. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I think it's worth doing your research. You know, when you do pictures like this, if you want to tell a story about someone or a theme or whatever it is. So when I started reading about these Land Surveyors, at first it was kind of a visual thing. It was just who they were. It was just gritty. But then you start reading about them, and what they do actually, or used to more so than now, is to go into territories that was kind of uncharted, right? So they're explorers in their own kind, and they're breaking boundaries, going out there where no one's really been before. But their job is to divide that land up and set boundaries. So there's sort of this strange dynamic of what these people do. So with that in mind, there's more layers to it when you photograph it. And it might not show it to you as a viewer, but it's really helpful for me as a photographer because I have then a viewpoint that's honest, right? Something that I can relate to. And I say, damn, this guy is an explorer. He's going out to this territory that no one's been before. But what he leaves behind is actually a piece of land that's cut up and divided. So I find it interesting. It's contrasts there. And I mean, I have this story that I tell in a lot of these lectures that I do. When I submitted this story to a magazine and they sort of butchered the order of it, and I got really upset and I said, this was the story I wanted to tell. And his reply was, but Erik, nobody gets it. So I realized then it doesn't matter if you understand my story about these land surveyors and how they come there and explore and how they cut it up. But it's really, really valuable for me as a photographer because I then bring something to it. I'm not just showing up and saying, click, here's a beautiful picture. There's an intent there that I want to convey, and that helps me creating these pictures.
That's incredible. I mean, you know, hearing that is great, and I could see someone doing something similar, and just say like, oh yeah, get an old guy. I don't know, just put a hat on him, get something that looks like an old tripod. But it's clear that that wasn't what you did. It's clear that everything about this, again, it means something to you, and it is intentional.
Yeah, and I also tell the same story to this guy. This is who you are. So bring your mind to that, right? You're in uncharted territory. You know, this is the mood, this is the feel. And it's great working with actors because they sort of know that, right? They know how to bring themselves to character. So I don't really say too much, oh, look this way, look that way. It's more about take a deep breath, imagine yourself in this big open landscape. You're seeing stuff you haven't seen before. Your job then is to find sort of a vista point or, you know, work with this, I can't remember the name of it, it's pretty intricate. It's a funky long name of this machinery that the Land Surveyors use. So I just let them sort of act it out, to come to it, set it up, look around, find their measuring points, look through it, pause, and have them sort of act out that process.
So you're almost like a director in that sense, you know, working with actors playing a role rather than just models trying to be pretty.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That was my trying to be pretty. I don't know if you saw that.
Tried to ignore it.
Yeah, thank you. It didn't work. Yeah, it's still me, everyone. Maybe I'll get my photograph taken by you. I'll look cool for once in my life.
Oh man.
Yeah, what an awesome image. Okay, and I have a very specific question I want to ask about this. First of all, I don't know if you know, but I was actually born and raised in Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I love that place.
On the island of Kauai. So this reminds me of home a little bit.
Turf.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which it would make sense for me to go back and shoot there, so that I will put that in the works. But so this image means a lot to me, you know, as far as where was this taken?
Kauai.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so my house was like right over here. But we talked a little bit about you know, capturing that moment, capturing the light, and waiting until the right moment. And this is a perfect example of, you know, just 20 minutes earlier or 20 minutes later, you wouldn't have gotten this. Tell me about a time when maybe you've missed that light. Maybe you just, your car, you were in too much traffic or something happened and you missed the light.
Yeah, it's been, you could ask a few producers that work with me that, man, I sit there in the car early in the morning and I sense the sun coming up and I get really restless. For this specific picture, we were there. So I wanted to shoot sunrise, knowing that the sun would rise this way. For a sunset, it would come behind these mountains behind us, and you wouldn't get this sort of quality of light that I'm drawn to. And we were up here 3 mornings to capture this. It's a crazy foggy place. As you know, it's not that often you get a clear morning here. So we just baked that in there. We did 2 assignments or 2 pictures over a week in Hawaii. And we knew that we needed that time to make sure that we get the picture. So again, for commercial photography, this is done for Genentech. You make sure to get it. There's no option to not. So if we had missed this space, I would have just basically stayed there till we got a clear morning.
So that's really good to know. So you build that time in, and you just make sure, you do everything you can to make sure you are there for the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's being there early on a day or just staying several days. And you would. I mean, if those 3 days, if it didn't work out, you would stay long. I mean, you're Hawaii. It's not like a big pain.
No, it's about honoring your craft, right? And you go there to take a picture, and then, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to say, sorry. If you have a huge crew and you're doing, this is a simpler picture. So in this case, I could just stay behind because it's a background plate, right? We talked about having these guys come off of this point, but it's too windy here. The wind comes straight up this valley, and it's unstable, so they didn't want to do it. So we photographed the background plate. When I knew the light was when I know the light here, I know I could photograph these in the similar light. So we went to a practice field where those guys could just fly down and take the car up and fly down and do that over and over for me. So in this case, for me, shooting a background plate, I would just stay there till I got it. I mean, you bake in what's called weather days when you do bigger shoots, so that if you do hit really bad weather and you don't get what you came there for, there's a contingency that the client will pay for the expenses to stay out and make sure it happens.
And there's no compromise. There's not, the light was okay. It's, we either get it or we stay.
Yeah, no, again, you gotta honor your craft. And if you have the attitude of, oh no, sorry, then I think will be reflected in your career. If you wanna have a long-lived career in commercial photography, you have to have the attitude that I'm gonna do my very best every time. And that's what you do. I mean, there's a lot of stories in photography about, you get hired and the photographers are just doing whatever they want because they're the artist. I don't feel that way. I'm honored that people will use me and my aesthetic, representing their brands. So I'm very mindful of me being a commercial photographer, applying my very best, for my clients.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect. And that's a really good message for anyone out there who wants to become a commercial photographer or already is one. Lunch is here.
Lunchtime.
Lunchtime! Can we just eat on your book? Is that...
Sure. I'm sure it happened before.
Yeah. It was like, oh, this is great. Oh. Let me just wipe my hands on it.
It's better now that there's plastic sleeves, but before you would get stains on it.
Really?
Oh yeah. And sometimes the agent, sometimes the agents will do like lunch stuff. They set up all the spreads and people come and have lunch and they look at their work and you see food stains on it. Sometimes if they do the shows in the afternoons, they would do cheese and wine, for instance. And I've gotten wine spots on my books.
And the next person who gets it's like, oh, what's this? It's an interesting little detail.
I mean, we fix it, but it's fine.